Hey Yogi, welcome to this little forearm stand tutorial. If you're new to the channel, I'm Rhi, this is Drakey, and if you are returning, welcome back. We're glad to have you back on YouTube with us. So this isn't really a class per se, this is just going to be a little tutorial for some tips for forearm stand. So I know that, I offer that a lot in my practices or my teaching. Certainly a lot of the classes on the channel have forearm stand in it, and I think potentially that's because forearm stand is a regular feature, shall we say, in the awakening yoga system, because it's in the full solar practice and it's in what we call the set, which is a set sequence that's about an hour long. And it's part of a series called the expansion series, which is really about kind of opening you up and really working the posterior chain, and it finishes with a moment of reintegration, which is forearm balance or pincha asana. So it's often shows up certainly in the classes that I teach here on the platform, but also in my own practice, plus in the classes that I teach in person. So it occurred to me today, one of my YouTube subscribers asked if there was something where we could dive into it just a little bit more than I probably do in a class. In a class, I'm probably just saying opposite hand to opposite elbow. Maybe there's the odd tip in there, but it's not very targeted and focused. So that's what this is going to be about, not a class. So what I would say is, you need to be ideally, depending on your body. Certain bodies are, kind of just the type of people that can just do things when they roll out of bed in the morning. Yeah, so my teacher can probably roll out of bed, handstand, splits, forearm stand, and then have her morning coffee. So if you're one of those people, you can just jump right into this tutorial and maybe you don't need it. But for a lot of us, we kind of need to just make sure that we are warm in the key places that are just going to give us the activation that we need when we're trying to do some of these big asanas. And forearm balance is a big asana. It's different, but similar to traditional headstand, Shirshasana, but it does have different requirements slightly. So what I would say is, because this isn't a class, then I would recommend that you go back onto the channel. I'm going to actually pop a card here and it'll also be in the description box. I'm going to link to a warm-up for inversions, I think it's a 12 to 15 minute slot. In there, it says I say to use myofascia balls to roll up and down either side of your spine, just to help open up your spine. If you don't have myofascia balls or a foam roller, then just pop a block underneath your spine and lift and lower. That's just a note, because a couple of people asked me about that on that video and said, what do I do if I don't have myofascia balls? So if I'm sending you over there, I need to give you that heads up. So I would say, hit pause on this and go to the shoulders for inversions little flow, and then also maybe just take a few sun salutations, just to warm up through the hips and the upper body, because we kind of want everything to be relatively warm before we start trying to put all of our weight onto our forearms and go upside down, which is fair. So all that being said and done, let's assume you've done all of those things. Or actually, if you've just come off the back of a vinyasa practice with someone else on the platform, with me, if you've just done one of my other classes, if it's just a vinyasa practice class, chances are that'll be warm enough for what we're doing. I still recommend checking out the shoulder for inversions, drills, just because they're drills I do daily before I go upside down, before I handstand. But I would also do them before any kind of forearm standing. So I will shut up about all of that now. So you will need a block for this. So grab yourself a block. And first of all, what we want to do is feel like we can push away from the floor. So we're not trying to receive energy from the floor and cave in. We are trying to push away from the floor. We are trying to energetically say, nah, I'm not coming down. So we are resisting gravity, as Patrick Beach would often say. And so to do that, a great place to start is to just feel what it feels like to get the biceps and triceps firing up, and also to feel the shoulders, the shoulder blade, the trapezius, all of these kind of things that are really important when we go upside down in at all, but certainly in a forearm stand, just to get them fired up. So I would always recommend, before you practice anything like that, is doing a few rounds of Dolphin. And I would do that with the block in between the hands. Anyone that's been on the channel with me for a little while will always hear me say, squeeze the block when you do that with Dolphin. So you come down, you squeeze the block, and you want to feel like you're pressing into the whole of your forearm. So I personally struggle with this myself. So traditional forearm stand is the palms flat and the palms flat, and then pressing down into the whole forearm. And that is something that took me a long time to achieve, like a long time. I probably still wouldn't choose to do that. And the reason being is, when I put my forearms down, and I think this will apply to a lot of you, which is why we're going to cover it. When I put my forearms down and start to bear weight in Dolphin, my hands start to do this. They start to come together, and that's because I have a weakness in my shoulders. I just struggle to keep those lines parallel. So what you tend to find is that if you then turn so that the thumbs are pointing upwards, that rotation just helps to fire up the upper arm. So that is why working with the block is a great way to help you to turn those muscles on that may have a hard time turning on and staying on at high intensity if you go with hands flat. So squeeze the block with your hands, forearms down. You want to feel weight across the whole of the forearm and right the way to the tip of the baby finger. You want to feel the weight transverse all across the arm and not just have it in the elbow, which is, again, super common. And I'm speaking from my own experience here. I dump into my elbow a lot too, like I just do. But I'm trying to distribute the weight, so keep that in your mind. So we're going to tuck the toes, you're on your knees, and then you're going to lift the hips high. Now, the first tip I would give everyone is that I often see a lot of this, and I've done this many times myself. So this is a Dolphin, right? I'm squeezing the block and I'm pushing through the whole of the side of that forearm, hopefully. However, this is quite far away. My hips are nowhere near over my shoulders. So what I would say is get the feet in as close as you can. And if you need to bend the knees like I do to do that, that's just going to get the weight far closer to the same distribution as it will be when you're actually in forearm stand. So when you're here, this is not how your shoulders are. Your shoulders are not this far back, and your hips are not that far back. When you're in the full expression, you want to get everything in a line or stacking or working to stack. So try to mimic that as much as you can within the Dolphin, so that you're teaching yourself that pattern of, oh, okay, this is how much weight is going to be in my forearms. And if the legs are further back, you're taking weight out of the forearms, essentially. So squeeze the block, come up. Keep squeezing, walk the feet in. Get to the point where you think, right, I can't walk them in anymore. Bend the knees, walk them in some more. Keep pushing the mat away. And you want to be here for a good amount of time. The head is not on the floor. This is another thing I see a lot when I teach in person, is that we cave in, yeah? We allow the shoulders to kind of sink forward and come towards the ears, and then we let the head go to the mat. I also apologize if all of this upside down talk means I'm shouting into my mic. It's like a serious problem. So you really want to be pushing away. We don't want to let the head touch the floor. there are lots of places and times where that is what we're wanting, but in the shoulder, we want it to resist. We want it to push away. We want to feel like we're trying to make space in between the shoulder and the neck. You know, we want to be long here. We don't want to be, this is not what we're aiming for. And this often happens just because we're not pushing enough. So come back to that dolphin, walk the feet in. Keep the hips high, bend the knees when you need to, and keep pushing away. The gaze wants to be kind of in between, anywhere in between the elbows and halfway up the forearm. I like in between the elbows. Of course, at some point, you know, you can get on to dropping the gaze and then you'd be looking straight back. But for now, you can just look in between your elbows. And then when you've had enough of that, you can come down. So if you're following that with me, that's tough. You'll feel that, you know, it's hard for me to speak and do that. And that's because, you know, of all of the weight distribution and where things are, it's actually, once you've got the balance, much easier to be in a forearm stand, believe it or not, than a dolphin. I find dolphin like the most badass pose that someone wants to put you in for a long period of time. If someone says to me, I want 10 breaths in dolphin or forearm stand, I would much rather take the forearm stand, because once the mechanics of the balance has been understood, it's really then much simpler a task. So pushing the block, pushing into the block, it's super important. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to come to, hopefully you have a wall. I should have said that at the top. Apologies. Hopefully you've got a wall. We're going to come close to the wall. I'm going to use the window and just hope that, you know, I don't do it any damage. And we want our back to the wall. And there's another reason for this, which is when we're kicking up to the wall, the chances are we're going to take the legs too far forward and we're going to sort of flare the ribs. So the legs are going to come up and over and flare. And that's not going to teach us the correct pattern that we want to build in the body going forward. So it's better, always better, to have your back to the wall. So we're going to set up. I mean, you can face forward, you know, we can do both. But we're going to set up here, and you're going to have to fiddle, I think, with the distance. But you're going to come up, and you want to be able to bring your feet onto the wall so that when you have your legs pushed in straight, your shoulders are roughly up and over. Your hips, sorry, are roughly up and over your shoulders. So push here and come down and see how that feels. Okay, so the next thing we'll do is we'll take one leg away from the wall. So when you're trying to build awareness of where do my hips go, we want to get the hips stacked. We want the shoulder relationship to the hip, like literally in a line, yeah? So as I stand side onto you, my shoulder is roughly in line with my hip and my spine is nice and long. We want exactly the same when we're upside down, but we're just upside down. So this time the hip is above the shoulder, but it's still in that line. And that's the thing that I personally found so challenging with this posture. And I actually worked with my teacher on it quite a lot last year to clean up some of the issues that I had. And a lot of the issues that I had was that my hips were either not quite above the shoulders, or they were above the shoulders, but I was really sinking into the low back, and we don't want that. So keep doing that drill, yeah? That's a great drill to just keep getting in the body, right? This is where I need to be. Like, my hips need to come this far over my head, which is not achievable for most people in a dolphin, because most people haven't got the hamstring length to do that. I mean, I'm not sure anyone does. Maybe a few people do. So whilst dolphin is the place to build the strength, but the awareness has to come when you've got those hips up over your head. So let's go again. So you've got your block. You're going to lift up. You're going to take both feet onto your wall, and then you're going to lift one leg up. And you can flex or you can point. The whole time I'm squeezing the block, and I'm pushing my whole forearm into the mat. I'm going to switch legs now. Take that leg up. Push into the forearms
The gaze is kind of in between your elbows. And again, you can come down. So that's a great place to be to build strength, because if you can be there for 20 seconds, come down, go back up, 20 seconds, come down. If you can be there for 30 seconds, go up, come down. You get my point. You're building your hips being above your shoulders in a straight-ish line. And you're also building that heat and strength in the shoulders, because this is a lot. This is a big ask. And I think a lot of people are fooled by forearm stand because they can headstand. But being able to headstand, a lot of people are putting a lot of weight in their head. And you don't have that luxury here. I mean, nor should we be in headstand, but that's a completely different point. So another thing here that we'll do is we'll use the wall, facing the wall, or in my case, we'll use the window. So I'll have to be gentle doing this because I do not want to hit the window. So forearms to the floor, squeeze your block. You can have your block pretty close to the wall, so you don't want it to be far away because that's going to encourage you to be in the wrong position. So bring your block pretty close to the wall and then lift up onto your toes, walk your feet forward, and then from here you're going to bounce and just bounce and see what it feels like till eventually gently that foot is going to touch the wall. Now one foot has to stay on the wall at all times. Once you do this, both feet, you'll sink and you'll banana back probably. So one foot off the wall at all times. Pushing into the forearms, engaging the core, everything's working, and then you slowly come down. So that's how using the wall is going to build that strength and build that awareness. Once you're ready to come away from the wall, this is much safer than headstanding away from the wall, in my opinion. So, if you're feeling like, oh God, I don't want to come away from the wall, that's fine. Stay with the wall until you feel that the shoulders have got the strength. Or you feel like, yeah, I'm holding that against the wall with my one foot on the wall, one foot off the wall for quite a while. I'm ready now to move forward. There's no need to rush. Inversions are a process. They take time. They come very naturally for some people, but for a lot of us, they don't. So breaking it down away from the wall. So you can use the block for this, or you can use your hands. So I'm just going to show you the way I do it because it's the way I teach it. So I want you to kind of hear from me why I do it this way. So opposite hand to opposite elbow. If your elbows are too wide, you're not going to have stability. So opposite hand, opposite elbow. I then like to clasp all my fingers, interlace them all except the first two fingers and the thumbs. That allows me to really push through the whole of my forearm. Then I press down and lift up and I walk the feet in. I then lift one leg and you're really looking, see there, we kind of just want to, it's not a big hop. A lot of the time I'll see this. So your feet will start really far back and then this is a really long way for your hips to go, yeah? Like that is not easy for me to catch. And you can see that I'm having a really flipping hard time of catching it. And chances are I'm in a real undesirable shape, back banana in. And that's because having the feet that far back, the kick in leg, you need a lot of momentum to get that leg up in the air, like a lot. And, if you're like me and you have long legs, that's a long way to go. So bring the foot in. I say this so much. And I think the reason people don't want to do that is because the closer the foot goes in, the less of a jump you need and the more real it might feel. But we've done our time at the wall. We're ready. So clasping the hands, first finger and thumb out. Pushing in, walking the feet in, lifting the leg. And then it's just a little hop. It's barely a hop. So for now, you could just hop
maybe you catch some air. If you're learning, I recommend staying in the L. So push into the whole of the forearm, right the way through to the fingers, and hold your L. Squeeze your glutes, squeeze the core, and when you're ready, just slowly come down. The L is another kind of big thing in awakening. The L just helps us to, the top leg is like our accelerator. It helps us to get the hips where we want them to be. The back leg is the brake. The back leg is like, okay, I need to counterbalance this. And when we're learning how to stack the hips over the shoulders in an inversion, it's pretty handy to have that almost seesaw effect where you can sort of be teeter-tottering, to quote an awakening teacher, and it kind of allows that balance. So I often will teach and practice in the L. It's a great place to be, and I wouldn't recommend trying to go for the straight line until you're in that L solid and feeling solid for, I don't know, a long time, 30 seconds, a 10 breath hold potentially. So, last little thing, if you think then, okay, I've done the L to death, I want to know what I should be doing for the straight line, we'll work on that. So opposite arm, opposite elbow, set yourself up, clasp the fingers, push into the forearms, walk the feet in, and then gently step up. So from here, I really need now to start to slowly squeeze my glutes, flex my feet or point them so that I can start to bring the legs together. Once they're together, I want to squeeze the glutes. Push out of the shoulders. And then slowly separate the legs and come down. I don't know about you, but I am cooked after that. My shoulders have really worked. So they're just a few tips. They're just the things that I was taught or things that personally help me in my body. Have a go with them. See how they show up for you. Think about how you want to use the block and the wall as props to help you on your way. And let me know how it goes. Drop me some update in the comments about how you're getting on with your pincha asana. So that is it from us. We are done. We are cooked for the day. We are going to probably go for a nice long walk. So whatever you're doing with the rest of your day, thank you so much for joining me for this little forearm balance practice. And I will see you back on the channel soon.